Right, welcome everyone. This is our 7th meeting, and today we'll discuss 3 topics: psychology, education, and economics. Economics will be the last, so I don't know if we'll survive until then, because we'll have to solve all of the problems of psychology and education first. But if we don't survive, we can always move it to other meetings. Okay, so let's start with psychology, and as usual, I'll just read a question, provide some way of looking at it from the point of view of a neural network theory, and then we'll go around, see what other people have to add. I know Revel was especially excited about this discussion, so if everybody's quiet, we'll just make him talk, right?
Thanks. Yeah.
That will go. Okay, so there are many questions in psychology that were listed in this file, big questions file, but I've only identified 5. And of course, we'll have other meetings where we'll discuss others, but let's start with those. So the first question is, how shall psychology be defined in terms of the neural network theory? And once we have that definition, is it actually scientific? Is it a scientific discipline, given its subjectivity that one usually encounters? So from the neural network theory, and as we discussed it, there's an observer who is trying to create a model of the universe around it, the environment. I would say that psychology is a study of those internal models of the outside world that a given observer is creating. Of course, the more advanced the observer is, the more advanced the model, but it's not the reality. It is actually your internal picture, if we're talking about psychology of people, or your internal model of how the universe around you functions. Now, it may be an accurate model, it may be a not accurate model. It may have errors in it, right? And depending if how this model evolves, forms and evolves, you may identify the problems with this, and then maybe trying to fix it. But before we go into fixing the problems, let's see if there are agreement about actually understanding how the model inside of the organism about the exterior world works. And of course, for that, we'll need to model that model. So it's like modeling the internal model of a given organism. So let's see what your thoughts on this. But before I go on, let me just also answer the second question about whether we should consider it scientific. So for me, scientific has to come with 2 parts. Well, first, there has to be a mathematical framework that allows us to construct model, do calculations, and that's one part. And I think we have that, and that would be neural network, the framework of artificial neural networks. And the second one is experiment. So that one is harder, right? So not only you want to be able to model how that model inside of the observer evolves, but you also want to be able to make predictions about that model. So if I show this and that to a subject, how will he or she react depending of how I model the way that the subject perceives the world, right? And making it as an experimental science, of course, the biggest challenge. So that's why I'm like split about, should we already call it a scientific discipline or not? And certainly we are moving in that direction. So we are trying to make it scientific, but maybe not there yet, because you still need those 2 parts. You still need you have to have a mathematical description of that internal model, and it's hard because, right, you cannot of course you can try to go inside and measure and put the electrodes in and see what excites what, but very often a lot of things are not directly accessible, and that's why it makes it complicated. All right, so I would like to hear now your thoughts, starting from Revel. What do you think about this particular definition? So let me just go over it again. It is understanding how the model of the universe around a given observer works, right? So we all want to model that model, if that makes sense. If not, we'll just go back and forth and clarify the definition.
I think that's the way it's worked historically. I think that's reasonable.
Okay, so you're okay with this definition, right?
Yeah, it seems like you're kind of jumping all over the place. Like, are you modeling an individual? Are you modeling an individual's experience of the universe, or exactly.
Yeah.
Kind of,
So
I
it's not
suppose
just
they could all be
modeling
valid.
individual, right? So it's not just modeling individual.
Yeah.
You're modeling the model of the universe that individual has, right? So let me give you an example. So some of us may have a faulty model of the universe around us. People who have been confined to closed spaces without having experience with the outside world. Many world leaders who may not have direct interactions with the world. They may be developing their own faulty model of the universe, right? And they would be making decisions based on those faulty models just because they've been filtering out too much information about the universe around them. Actually, in the modern age, we all do that, right? We're all like staring on the computer screens. We trust too much, media. We're, get news from same sources and kind of do not get direct access to what is going on around us. So we've put that filter ourselves, and that filter kind of creates a model inside us, and that model is our psychology. This may be a good model, it may be a bad model, right? And if you're saying there's a person who has some mental health issues, I would say that it has to do with the internal model of the person about the environment. Yeah, and so how do you fix it? And again, you want to retrain it, right? You want to provide to it information that was cut off. We'll get to that later on, but let me just get your thoughts about actual definition. Maybe somebody wants to chip in.
I think one of the questions that I threw up at the last minute is that a lot of people have a tendency to think about psychology as going on in the mind, but I think it should be clear to everybody, it's this working in the field and others, that it's the entire body. It's the nervous system. It's the lungs. It's it's the neurons in your stomach. It's everything. So I think that's exactly the point, kind of, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sorry. And then it's the connection, and then the connections that we don't even see.
Right. So that's exactly the point. It is not just the model inside your head, and that's it, without interaction. It is the model that was built because of the interaction with the environment. So if you cut out environment, then there is no issue. So really, the model that you have built in your head, you may be like, in your head, you think that some people are evil, some people are good, right? And there may be already a mistake because maybe the person who is evil isn't really evil, but you've created a model of him based on whatever facts that make him evil. I'm just exaggerating it, but that may happen.
Yeah,
right?
I understand.
The other way around, if somebody perceived as good, is maybe because you've been paying attention too much to irrelevant information, what makes him good, and yet it was a constant lie throughout, and really, and then your model of the universe around, in this picture, the model of concrete people you are dealing with is faulty. It has an error, but that's your model. And then the only way for you to adjust that is to gain more information. So if you just want to block yourself from exterior, then you're not solving the problem. You're making it worse. Josh, you wanted to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say it makes sense to think about this makes sense when, especially if you consider that model is probably mostly subconscious. Because I mean, of course, it seems to you like a lot of what you're doing is conscious, but most of probably what you're doing is subconscious. And and there's probably a bunch of places where your subconscious model gets totally screwed up by so many things we already know. So I think that makes a lot of sense, especially when you consider conscious and subconscious models.
Perfect. Then I want to throw in two more ideas. So one is a formation of this model, which is formed just with the direct interaction with the environment. You created a model. And then evolution of this model that happens, dynamics of that model, that happens subconsciously. You don't need to get anything from the outside. You just further develop what you think this model is telling you. And eventually, by not interacting with the environment, you will make it a bad model by itself. Right, so then it may be formed well, but then because of this internal subconscious dynamics, it has became bad. Right, it became a bad model, and it's not and this is a cause of why you have might have psychological issues, because now then the internal model was originally okay, then it acquired a lot of errors, and then you are comparing it again with the environment, and it seems like things do not fit in. You expect that person to say yes, and he says no. You expect the certain things happen and they don't happen. It not because originally the model was bad, but because it generated errors as it developed inside of you. So and that kind of brings me to the kind of the next question. So are there any psychological phenomena beyond biology of individual? And I want to distinguish fundamental psychological phenomena and emergent. And so I think one of the emergent ones is exactly errors generated by two sources. It can be either because you put some wrong filters, you decided that some information is irrelevant and you just didn't include it into your model. You stopped paying attention to what Republicans say. You just ignored it completely because you didn't like them in the beginning. You just forget about them all along. And then a filtering problem, because that kind of creates a filter that doesn't allow you to understand what people might be saying, even if you disagree. Knowing what they're saying is important. But then the other error, and that error comes from the filtering, right? Filtering, and the other error from the internal dynamics, so kind of forgetting. And in the neural network theory, there are two well-known dynamics, right? One is the boundary dynamics. That's data set streams data to your neural network, and the data set becomes corrupted for some reason. And that's like putting the wrong filter or paying attention to the wrong things. And that's bad for training. And the other one is activation dynamics. And you may just get errors from that activation dynamics. And then eventually your system was good, but then it went astray. Okay, go ahead, Revel. You wanted to add something?
Well, I can see what you're talking about with the filters, and let's say how you might put a false filter up, or you might put a filter up. Let's say you didn't like what Republicans said, and then you just decided that they were never going to change their mind to say anything sensical, so you kept that filter up, which wouldn't necessarily be bad. Mm-hmm. But I could see, I understand that, but I don't understand how active dynamics would relate to a psychological interaction. Can you give me an example of that?
So no interactions yet. It's just you created your model. Putting filter is okay because you always have to put, but it has to be a flexible filter. So then you have to reevaluate your filter. Republicans are bad, but maybe not all the time. Maybe on some issues you should listen to them. Or Democrats are bad, but maybe are not. I mean, I don't want to be like take one or the other side. I'm just saying that putting those filters, creating this information bubble for yourself is just not productive from the point of view of learning. But the second one was activation dynamics. It is how you remember things. Right. So when they just happen, you have a fresh memory of what happened, and you kind of fresh understanding of what those people did or didn't do. As time goes on, and you just reprocess the same information, eventually error gets generated, and the events that at once you knew very well becomes less and less known. And so just by the passage of time, you have a less precise model of the environment. At some point, you might have had a perfect model of the environment, right? But then you decided, I'm so smart, I know everything. Let me just forget interacting with people. I'll close myself in the room and start writing books. I don't know. And then eventually, a couple of years passed, and really, you're actually becoming stupider, right? You're forgetting things you used to know, and that is another source of error that deforms your internal model of the universe. If that makes sense. And both of them are really, you don't have to include any new phenomena because we'll come to the point of are there any fundamentally psychological phenomena that is just present for psychology and not do not emerge from biology. But here, everything is well known. I mean, we're still using the same fields to interact, electromagnetic field or sound, and yet there is this emergent phenomena of what can go wrong. And that happens with everyone, right? So, and you should try to avoid those two things. You should try to avoid filtering. And now it's actually became worse with all this age of social media, where the companies are creating information bubble for you, because their objective is just to make money. But at the end of the day, you just stop interacting with people who might give you knowledge. Maybe before you didn't pay much attention to their skills and the reasonings, and it wasn't important, but time goes on, and so once in a while you should still listen to all the people and get all the views. But the information bubble just puts you in a separate universe, right? And you live in that bubble with the people who share your views, and that makes your internal model worse and worse. But then you go out of your bubble, interact with them, and then that's actual physical pain to talk. For Democrats to talk to Republicans, for Republicans to talk to Democrats. I mean, but that's a real issue. Now let me move on to the second type, but there might still be some fundamental psychological phenomena that just isn't described by biology. I'll just give you one deja vu, right? How many of you guys actually just experienced deja vu? I don't know if it's how common. So, okay, I experienced deja vu, and Revel, you're the only one who haven't experienced deja vu. But as a flashback, right? I have this.
Different things. Different things. Yeah, right. Different things.
Right. So I've experienced that. I know it. I have no explanation of why it might be possible, how it can arise as an emergent phenomena from biology. Just doesn't fit well with a model. Could there be that there are some other phenomena that are only present at a psychological level? Maybe. I don't know about this, but we should keep our minds open. Now, the other the other phenomena that I've listed here, sometimes I don't know how many people experience that, but you want to call a friend, right? You're about to call him, and then you get and the phone starts ringing, right? Makes no sense from the point of view of anything we know about physics. Why would you both at the same time decide to call each other? Now, is this a real phenomena? Can we actually make an experiment and measure that this phenomenon is real? And there are a bunch of things like that have no explanation, and we don't know whether it is really. And we do not know until we have until we make psychology a science, right? Where you create a model, and you do calculations, and you make prediction. Yes, this is a probability. How often this should happen? And let's now run an experiment where we would, get the data from the phone companies that would allow us to measure correlations between different calls and stuff like that. And then, possibly we can make that, or in social media, probably the same effects happen, right? Maybe if people have some connections with each other, which are beyond physics and biology, maybe you can measure those results. So I still want to distinguish the emergent phenomena that kind of makes sense already from the point of view of the neural network theory, and the ones that still haven't been explained. Any other ideas or thoughts?
I just think that science could probably explain both of those examples that you gave, but that's because science is good at that.
Yes.
Question. You said like model is faulty, but any model is faulty in a sense, right? It's just a representation. But definition is poorer than reality. So how do I know? Anyone is in a bubble in some sense, because we cannot know everything. So how do you distinguish between bad model and not that bad model?
Right. So I think the way I view it, that's the only thing scientists can do is model. Okay, that's the best guess of how we can make sense of the universe around us. So and we write our models. You can write your model by yourself within your head on your piece of paper, and just it will be your own model. And then you can say, right, I want to use this model to predict how often my girlfriend will call me. And then you do calculations and you say, okay, well, frequency goes down. So maybe I haven't included everything in the model. Maybe there is some third person who is interfering with these connections, and you should adjust your model. And then you see that there is a problem with the model. You want to adjust. But the best you can do is always just a model. My statement is, if the words are completely non-interacting, then yeah, you simplify your system, and then that is it. But if there are small interactions between those isolated worlds, then you should take that into account. So one of the things we discussed in the very beginning of previous talk, I think, or maybe two meetings before, was how the universe was born. and how the individual microneurons started to interacting with each other and say, hi, I'm here. And then each neuron cannot process information from all neurons, so it has to decide. And so it has to put a filter. Okay, I'm just going to talk to this guy and not to the other guy. So putting filters are okay. But then as the evolution goes on, you are able to open up and allow more and more channels of communication. And then we discuss how languages is a new channel of communication that is more sophisticated, that allows you transfer of compressed information between another. I do not know whether psychology will bring yet another study of psychology and modeling will bring yet another communication channel. Now, it would be interesting, right? It would be very interesting. Let's say that there really is fundamentally new field, not just built on top of the electromagnetic field, like languages and sound or other things, but actually the new one. So if it exists and if we can measure it and we can model its dynamics, that would be, of course, and that's kind of one of the questions that Revel put down. Are there local or non-local fields of intelligence, consciousness, awareness, like there are fields of particles? And I think until we have a good model of psychology and set up like lineup of experiments where we can test our models, we won't be able to answer this question. But it has to be something like yeah. Go ahead, Revel.
Well, I mean, it seems self-evident from the work of great scientists and things when they just, how do they come up with this out of nowhere? To me, I mean, I don't know exactly how you guys work, but when you talk about a great idea coming out of nothing, right?
Yeah, so the source of ideas, right? Okay, so actually we'll talk about ideas later for education, but okay, where does the ideas come from? And I think also we mentioned it last time. Whenever you hear idea, they're either were retransmitted to you. So somebody generated idea, then it came to you, and then you just received it, or someplace it was generated, right? So someplace. Now, whether it is possible for just a neural network generate new ideas, I wouldn't be surprised if that would be possible. So without having now, whether some new channels make this generation of new ideas better, well, that's you can actually generation of new ideas. You can experiment with that with kids, right?
So it's so does this mean that E equals M squared is already on the network somewhere? It just took somebody to pull it out. Is that kind of what you're saying?
E equals to mc squared. It was just Einstein's attempt to model the universe. So it was his psychology. His psychology says, okay, I need to adjust something. I need to add something to the equations that we know up to now, to the framework up to now. I need to make this adjustment. Of course, or even more striking and great idea that of Einstein was general relativity, right? Out of nothing, right? All of a sudden, he said, "Okay, the universe is a general relativistic system where the space-time is curved and everything like this." But it was just an honest attempt of him to model the universe, right? That's all. That's all there is. I just want to understand how the universe works better. The point I was raising here, it is not clear whether you do need or you do have other additional channels that are just not explained by the communications, like verbal communications, or I mean, I'll give Katya. I do see your hand. I'll give you a word in a second. So let me just finish my word. So one guy, famous cosmologist Andrew Linda, once told me that he has this crazy idea that he cannot really explain to any physicist, that there are special connections between mothers and the sun, right? So he has this idea, he feels it, he thinks it's right. He cannot put it in equations, but he knows it's right. And so he believed it so much, he actually put at the end of his book, which was completely like physics, he actually put a section explaining this idea. And then when he went to a publisher, says, okay, well, here it is, publish it. They said, okay, we're not going to publish it until you remove this nonsense. And his because we are not going to then respect ourselves as a publishing company. And he said that if you remove it, I will stop respecting myself. So they left it there. There was a compromise. But again, the people who have already the tools of and use heavily tools of mathematics to model the universe encounter certain phenomena psychological phenomena that they cannot explain, but they're not ready to give up. They're saying, yes, currently we don't have the tools to model it, but it is there. I feel it, so I'm going to write about it. I'm going to say that about it. Now, what I'm saying now that we have now a new framework of these neural networks, and we still have all this bunch of phenomena that some of us experienced, others didn't, and we should just try to model them as well. Katya, your thoughts?
I'm still, I doubt I understand pretty well what is exactly how we define the field of psychology, or what is psychology as a level. When we talk about biology, it's some kind of communication and forming a new system by some amount of more simple forms of life or organisms. When we talk about society or political level, we are talking about some system, again, about some other level of communication, right? But when we talking about psychology, then after political, there is, let's say, biosphere level or something like this. So all these levels are something about the system of communication and information exchange, right?
Yeah, well, I'm thinking about psychology also the same. Now it's a system of cells communicating with each other. That's from our brain, and not only brain, everything, right? So it's still that system. There's still new channels of communication, right? So the cells, bring information. But now what they're able to do, they're able to create this internal model of the universe, which is a lot more sophisticated than internal model of the universe created by a cell, and even more, much more sophisticated than the internal model of a particle. Particle also has its own model of the universe, right? It only reads out certain fields and gets very limited information, lots of filters, because it's not capable of processing everything. So it is the same thing, but we just fix the level because we are interested in this level. We happen to be communicating on that level, right?
I don't quite understand how this level is defined, how we understand that here we are on a biological level.
Oh, okay, yeah. Right. So once you go from the cells to multicellular organisms, so again, remember all those boundaries between levels are very vague, right? And so, but here we have a particular idea, right? So we have now a level of a system which consists of many different cells with distributed duties, right? You do this, I do that, and yet this combined system is trying to do the very same thing that other systems do, trying to model the environment and adjust to it, learn, right? And yet at that level, there are things go wrong. Because the reason we study it because of psychiatry, right? Because, you stop functioning as a good learning system. Some people stop functioning because of their internal model generates errors. And we pay attention to this level for this reason first. Now, the second reason is, of course, the whole neural network idea, artificial, came from mathematical modeling of biological brains. So it could be potentially, we created a very rough model of the actual neural network, and we missed something important. Not miss something important from the point of view of how an actual cells communicate and how they adjust connections, but something important for learning, right? So it could be that just our model of artificial network misses something important that is present in this biological from the point of view of learning. And if that's the case, we have to kind of use it and readjust our artificial neural networks to make them better. But that's one more applied aspect of psychology. But I think we are just fixing the level. And the reason why I think it's a good idea to fix a level and talk about this, because every next level comes with new phenomena that wasn't present in the other levels. So biology comes with the hierarchy of things, many phenomena that just wasn't present on the level of physics, right? So we talked about programmed death, we talked about replications, natural selections, all those things that just was not there, and now all of a sudden here are important. So I expect the same happens in psychology on the psychological level. We just haven't captured all of those new phenomena that would need to be described. But in this overall hierarchy, I think it is still the same thing. We just say that on each level there is learning, just new algorithms. That maybe this is the way to put it.
And
On
a lot
each
of survival.
new learning algorithms are discovered. What did you say, Revel? Sorry.
I said learning and also survival. Don't forget about that, right?
Okay. Well, we've had this discussion. Do we learn to survive or do we survive to learn? That kind of actually was very, very not clear for me until now. What is the purpose? Is it to learn to survive or survive so that we can learn? But yeah, those are two things come really.
The reason I say that is because in the field, the survival part becomes very paramount versus the learning part. And then how to integrate those two together. How can you teach somebody in a survival state, new skills?
Right. But perhaps general relativity is not really needed for our survival. And yet we learned it. And perhaps actually modeling, you do use it's in the GPS units and stuff, but there are certain phenomena that are just not necessary for survival. And yet we want to learn it somehow. I would say learning is primary, but that's a whole different philosophical question to discuss.
I agree.
Go ahead.
Side effect.
Alexander, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a side effect of learning capabilities, I think, that we are able to learn relativity theory because we learn to something else. I don't know.
No, but it gives us some certain pleasure, right? So
yeah,
but the learning seems to be, from my point of view, I think the learning seems to be more fundamental, and it's really our desire to learn more and more, and then survival is just byproduct. The better you learn, but again, I'm always back and forth on this, and I don't know. I'm not confident with my answer. Katya, you wanted to say something or no? Okay, no. Okay, so I just want to stress that there might be some fields and some fundamentally psychological phenomena that we just still haven't figured out. And the reason for that is very simple. If we do not make psychology scientific, if we do not write equations, we are not going to be able to do this. So let me give you an example. So let's say we have a subject who has some mental issues, and we're trying to understand what was wrong and how to make the subject better, right? So what you want to do, you want to first create a model of that patient, right? A mathematical model, like a neural network, and check that really when you contact a real person, to the patient, you get certain reactions, and that mathematical model produces similar reactions. So if once you created that, now it's maybe complicated, but mathematical model of what was wrong. And now we can see, okay, how do I readjust the neural network, this artificial neural network, such that it performs better and doesn't have the flaws of the real person's neural network. And then you can say, okay, well, maybe I should change the boundary conditions. I should be like showing him, sequence of some pictures, reading, stories, having him listen to music. I don't know what it is, but that is changing the boundary dynamics that would modify neural network, which is artificial. And this may tell you exactly what needs to be done with a patient. But for that, you need this model, this mathematical neural network, the matrix with its weight matrix, with its spectrum, where you can see, I see, there is a problem there. Revel, go ahead.
So do you think you might be able to use a machine to model a mental disorder? Is that kind of what you're saying?
That's right. All disorders, mental disorders, now we have a language, right, of neural networks. And you just say, okay, so the disorder is that the rank of certain weight matrix became too small, or the activation dynamics is too noisy, or the boundary filter keeps jumping, and so the person cannot perceive the world because it keeps changing, right? Everybody can go nuts if all of a sudden you start, the universe stops being coherent, right? And then the problem is with the boundary dynamics. Then the only thing you have to just put a right filter, and then it would fix the person.
But then I think you have to make it necessarily without the decision of whether what that perception was real or whether it was a hallucination, because you can't even necessarily make that distinction.
Oh, you should be able. So because, there is a reason why persons start hallucinating stuff, right? Because that hallucination is better suited with the model of the world around it that it created, right? So maybe the person was too lonely, and then he had to create an imaginary friend, and then eventually imaginary friend became with him all the time. And so now what we have to do is to get rid of this imaginary friend. If that's what we want to do, is to introduce him to the real friend. I mean, I'm just throwing ideas, just saying, like, if we can create a model of the patient, right, of the person who thinks that he is struggling. Maybe he's not struggling, maybe we're struggling, and the person is just enjoying his state of being crazy, right? And just don't bug me, don't bother me, right? But if we are saying, all right, even then, it would be nice to create a model and say, okay, here are the connections, here's the spectrum that is not behaving how we would expect. And maybe this is good for certain learning tasks. Maybe we can identify such a person and say, look, now try to quantize gravity, and then the person will quantize gravity with no problem because he has the right mindset. Alexander, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe I'm going to be somewhat provocative, but what's the place of the hard problem of consciousness in your model? Is there such thing as subjective experience in your model?
Well, yeah. So I think in this case we have erased the. I've had the discussion. What's his name? Who was the guy who produced this hard problem of consciousness?
The term itself. Who coined the term?
Who was the name?
Russian.
I read it literally yesterday.
Doesn't matter. Okay. So, anyways, yeah, I talked to people on the FQXI meetings about this.
Bernard Bears.
What?
Bernard Bears.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
fair.
So I think.
Oh, David Chalmers. Oh,
David
Chalmers.
Yeah, exactly, David. Okay, so I talked to him about this, and I was still not able to convince myself that such a problem exists and it's real. From all the discussions we had with him about this on this FQXI meetings, and I do not think I understand the distinction well enough to pinpoint and say, well, here it is. This is a real problem and doesn't fit into the. Go ahead.
Can I
Did you
want to
talk
say
to-
something about the treatment protocol, what I see happening with psychiatry specifically. So, it doesn't seem like we're anywhere near, you don't think there's a hard problem with consciousness.
I don't think
It seems like but it seems like the medical and the scientific community of today is almost 100% fully convinced that the subjective experience of our awareness or consciousness or whatever you want to call it is fully generated by the electrochemical activity in the brain, with no exceptions. And once you turn off that light switch, it's gone, which there's a lot of evidence that seems to indicate that's not true, even from the medical field.
I disagree that it's fully explained by chemical and electrical fields. So I think there is more to it. And we know, and you don't have to go to psychology to see that there are more to it. We already have, at the level of biology, we see that this is not just standard model. And there are the second law of thermodynamics, entropy is being lower now, being destroyed. You create organized things. So I disagree with that in the beginning, but I know where it comes from. It comes from the hope that physics can explain everything. Physics as we know it, as we constructed in the 20th century.
Particle physics.
Or quantum.
It's a hope that particle physics will solve everything, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I think this is the disagreement with two things. Well, first of all, disagreement with what I just said, second law of thermodynamics. So we see very coherent structures which doesn't seem to be forming out of thermal gas. And for the purely physical systems, you should see the opposite. You should see a highly disorganized system, and then once in a while, a Boltzmann brain nucleates and start asking stupid questions. So that's one contradiction. The other one, quantum mechanics cannot be complete, and we also talked about this. There is a measurement problem, and so quantum mechanics and the particle mechanics, which is built on the quantum mechanics, and the standard model, which is built on the quantum mechanics, cannot be complete. So there is still a special role of observer that we discussed last time that has to be played. So both directions, the second law of thermodynamics tells you that there is more, and I think it's learning. and the inability for us to describe observer, both of those indicate that there is no goal. There is no way that physics can explain all of it. Yeah.
So regarding the second law of thermodynamics, are you suggesting that there are pockets, there are anti-entropic pockets that come out that are unexpected? That this is not one universal system, that the second law is not distributed throughout the universe? Is that?
Yeah, so basically there are two types of dynamics that's happening all the time in any learning system, in the artificial neural networks. One is the activation dynamics, which is just stupidly propagate the signal through, just, performs processing that you usually see in physics. You have a state before, you have a state after, you have a state before, you have a state after. And so that one will explore all of the phase space, which is compatible with it. And then you will have your second law of thermodynamics. But then there is a second type of dynamics, learning dynamics, that does the opposite. So the second law of the learning dynamics is actually trying to decrease the entropy. It's trying to correlate the states of your internal world of the universe, like we talked about psychology, and external. So it wants to create correlations. So it wants, and the more correlations there are, the less entropy of the system is. So there's more redundancy in the storing data. And so the learning systems all tend to do that. Now, if you put all of the biology to the side and say we're not considering biology, then it's a system which already learned everything it could. And then it's the only dynamics is this activation dynamics, which basically really stupid. And then it just have the entropy grow. If you put all the particles in one corner, they'll spread out through the entire room. So I think learning like changes it to the opposite. Now you can have subsystems which do the opposite. Now, is it true that the entropy of the entire universe is still growing? It doesn't matter at this point. What's better is not like how the whole. This is just one number.
I think that's the conclusion you have to say to, because from 20 billion years from now, whether a new universe is going to come out of a black hole, it's kind of irrelevant.
Right. So we are here. We are modeling the universe around us. We are trying to understand whether it makes sense to describe everything through quantum mechanics, and I don't think it is. But biology. So biology gave me this confidence that physics is not complete. But I think there is more in psychology. And the only way for us actually to understand it, and actually we want to make it scientific. And so when you tell me that there are some medical experts who do not think that there's anything new, doctors, anything new that comes at the level of biology or psychology, I would strongly disagree. So I think there are many evidence suggesting there is a lot more. We just don't know how to model it properly. And that's what we should be doing. We should be just writing down models of psychology, of psychology of people, and then and then that would be also useful for psychiatrists, right? Because psychiatrist is kind of not clear is doing a good job for a given patient, because psychiatrist has its own psychiatrist has its own model of the universe. He or she thinks this is a good model, and so he's trying to promote his model and implant it into the patient head. Right.
The model of psychiatry is almost entirely based on symptomology. There's no lab test. There's no scientific test to it whatsoever. The entire thing is categorized and recategorized. It's all symptoms. It's just anthropomorphic creation.
Yeah.
At this point,
that's why I'm saying it's very dangerous. Very dangerous. Yeah. So you should not just trust so much one of your psychiatrists because he knows better how to live life. No. Ideally, you should come to the doctor's office, say, well, here's the symptoms, maybe some tests, psychological tests run on you. Then this computer creates a model of your model of the universe. And then saying, okay, now if you want to be happy when it's the sun is rising, here's what you need to do. You do this. If you want to be unhappy about that, this is the adjustment that you should make. So it would be like a completely predetermined set of things that you would have to do if you to adjust your own psychological state or your own model of the universe around you. Okay, so now the last question, psychology, and we'll move on, is what are the important considerations? And so we already discussed one, and I think I just want to emphasize that. Information bubble is one of the things that is immediate, and very important. And this is why it is important to tackle, right? So if we do not tackle that problem now, it will become worse and worse. When the connections between people are generated based on the algorithms of the social networking and not on what you think is a pleasant or unpleasant experience, this is a very dangerous route, much more dangerous than creating AGI, artificial general intelligence, which is years ahead of, we don't even know when it's coming. But creating an algorithms that decides who you should be friends with and why, that's very dangerous. So I would argue against that. And if there is an ability to convince people to tweak their algorithms within the social networking, this is should be a #1 priority for us. Okay,
It would depend
Alexander,
on the algorithm.
Alexander,
Yep.
go ahead.
Yeah, one more question. I don't know if you know Donald Hoffman. So he proposed to include an axiom that there is a conscious act of perception as a scientific axiom, because everyone, whoever you ask, right, if you feel anything, everybody will tell, yes, I feel. So why don't we take this as a scientific axiom that there is a conscious act, not reduce it to molecules and neurons, etc., and then build a new science based on it, because obviously everybody has perception. What do you think about it?
Yeah, well, I agree, but what the science will be, that's the biggest question. So for now, we are running a Gedanken experiment here that the mathematical model of neural networks is sufficient. Well, first of all, I'm convinced that it's more general than quantum mechanics and material physics. Now we want to see whether it's sufficient to explain more of the phenomena, and maybe it will be so successful that it will actually be able to solve real psychological problems and problems at the levels of society, because the mathematics is there. Now we have to build models and then match the experiment. So if that will work, I'll be very happy. That was one of the
That'd be
problems.
great.
Katya, go ahead.
What
Katya, we cannot hear you.
of bubble?
Katya, there is a connection problem, I think. Yeah, go ahead.
Is it okay now?
Yes.
Okay. What do you mean by information bubble that is formed by social networks applications? I think that the mechanism. I think it's probably again.
Well, let me just maybe answer while you're fixing it what I mean by bubble, and then you'll add another question. So right now,
no, I know what is meant by bubble. I mean that usually I think it is formed basing on the preferences of people. So if I have some similar political views or similar values, it suggests me to be in contact with similar people.
Yes.
Katya, that
And
would be very naive if that's how social media work. They don't care about your preferences or who you'll be connected with. Their objective is to make you stay on the social platform for longer. Okay, how they accomplish it doesn't matter. If they discover that you like to fight, and they discover that you stay there longer, if you see some kind of opposite opinions, they will make sure that you meet such friends, and then you will keep fighting there. Unfortunately, usually people like to hear something that agrees with their model of the universe, right? So if I am a Republican, then I like to hear about about stolen elections, and I don't want to go political, but they like to hear that, okay? And they will only stay on the social media if they keep receiving posts where the Democrats are bad, etc. Right? I didn't want to go into politics now, but it turns out I have to, as an illustration, as an example. And so because you stay longer, you see more advertisement. Because you see more advertisement, they make more money. So from their perspective, their objective function is to make more money. And that is not the objective function to make the social network smarter, for example, or produce new ideas, or produce new collaborations. It's a different objective. And because of that, it turns out, maybe it was initially not clear that the bubble will be created. Maybe, because there are people who like to argue. Like I like to argue. So for me, talking to opponents who disagree with me and who shares critical thinking skills is a pleasure. But for most people, not. And so that's why now we can see that there are bubbles are created. And the effect of those bubbles can actually be calculated. They do not share with us this information, but you can write a spectral analysis of the connection matrix of the people, and you can probably clearly see that there is a lot of sparsibilities, very sparse network with a certain like clusters of people who share the views, and that's bad, only because objective function is wrong. So that's kind of my.
I understand what you are talking about, but also I think it is anyway some kind of natural feature that I don't want to talk to someone much different
You do,
of the
Katya,
world,
you do.
of the world. So
Katya, you do. Maybe not all the time, but you do. So sometimes you really want to hear, argue, hear opponents of other people, and that's a natural. So you have to be like in a critical state where you have exposure to people who you agree with, people who you disagree with, and then you, by talking maybe with people who disagree, who are knowledgeable, you build a better model of the universe inside of your head, and so that was helpful. Okay, but the objective, if the objective was for you to create a better model of the universe for this social system, then I wouldn't be complaining. But their objective is different. They want to show more profit. They're more time you spend on the neural network, on the social network, and that's dangerous. That is very dangerous because.
Are you saying all of, is that, are you then singling out all of Facebook?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So if you are using, if you are using Facebook for this purpose to make connections, to build connections, or to get your news from Facebook, yeah. So you're not doing the right thing. You should not be doing that. They will.
I agree with Katya. It's a natural thing, and what social networks do with these natural things is they lean on them and make them unnatural. It's like how we put high fructose corn syrup in all of America's stuff.
Exactly.
Because we're evolutionary predisposed to want sugar, so they put it in all our stuff, and now we're all fat.
That's right.
Well, the same thing happened with the algorithms. They packed it with all the stuff that gets our attention, and they evolutionary, like fear and being scared. That gets people's most attention. They stay online. They spend more money. And one of the things that people do is you can ignore people. Well, in the real world, you can't ignore someone 100%. Like you're going to bump into someone at the store, or you're going to bump into, right? But in the internet, you can just completely cut off your outside world. And so I think that the internet takes advantage of our natural traits as a human, and the algorithms, milk it for all the money. Sorry for the graphic.
But they should milk it for generating new ideas. So if we had a social network that actually establishes connections, like collaborations, so that new and new ideas can be generated, that would be a great network. That would be actually what we are talking about, creating the super intelligence where we're free to exchange ideas and
that's one of the main problems with a highly capitalist system like we have today. It has a bunch of benefits, but one of the downsides is that there's so much money to be made. No one focuses on, oh, well, how about social well-being, or how about social wellness or personal wellness? Everyone's just focused on making money, the companies and everybody. But that's another topic.
Well, economics, we'll get to there at the end. So, but yes, that was an important comment. Thank you. Okay, so let's move on to education and then economics. Now, why I think education is important? Because, well, first of all, I think this is the source of most of the problems is the absence of education. So the more education you get, the more educated people are. Usually the better you can build, the better the society will be built. It will better be understanding each other. And I think this is a crucial issue. But as I was professor for 12 years, I know exactly what the problems are. The problems is that most students do not actually know how to learn. They've done fine in their high schools. They've done fine in the maybe freshman years of universities, where they passed all the exams. They've got all of the information memorized, but they never learned how to learn. They never learned how to actually create compact models of their knowledge, right? Compressed knowledge of their knowledge. And so the problem is with this is they never learned how to learn. They never learned. So take an example in physics, right? You can just memorize all of the physical results, or you can just understand one physical concept, which is called least action principle, and everything else follows from it. And then everything, the whole physics, as we know, it just falls from one principle. And then it's hard. It may take you a long time to learn, but once you learned it, now you can connect the dots and see, aha, E&M, electromagnetic theory comes from here. You know, maybe gravitational theory comes from here, general relativity, and everything. Now it's a very difficult task to identify those important ingredients. It's easier just to memorize everything, but that gives you the ability to learn things much faster, more efficiently in the long run. So it's in the short run, yes, just memorize, but in the long run, you really want to be able to connect the dots. Now, before I ask you for your comments, think about entropy. So you're trying to learn some subject, and it's like a huge book. There is a lot of words. It's a highly entropic thing, right? And lots of entropy in there. Now, you don't want to really memorize every single word. You want to gain relevant information out of it. You want to really compress all this to the essential things. And the more you compress, the better your understanding of this material would be. And this the notion of compression or removal of entropy is what learning is all about. So what are your thoughts about this, like memorizing versus understanding, I guess,
Well, yeah, that reminded me when I was studying organic chem. There were two ways to learn organic chem. You could just memorize 400 reactions of different things, or you could learn the principles of the electron pair bonding that would result, and then you would know.
That's exactly the point. Yeah.
I would say, and this is like your physicist friend who has a connection with his mom. It's probably like it probably wouldn't be a good chapter in a book, or maybe it would, but just allow me to say it. I feel like there's some connection between I lost my train of thought. Come back to me. I lost it.
Vitaly, is it similar to how deep learning works? Like every next layer of the neural network has more abstract.
Okay, that was my next thought. It's exactly how neural networks work, and then the deeper your neural network, the more compressed features you extract from whatever you're learning. Like, if you're trying to do image recognition, maybe you just look at only local features, right? So colors, maybe, there's many pixels of certain color. But at higher level, now you're seeing that it's not just a color; those are objects. Maybe it's a wheel, and then there is a glass, and then you go in the higher level. Now you can distinguish it's buildings and cars. And so forth. Now you can distinguish what kind of environment it is, village environment versus countryside or city side, and that is exactly. But the more depth in your model of the environment, the more you compressed it, and the more you've kind of reused the resources that can be used for something else. That's very important. Now, unfortunately, the current educational system is not constructed for you to do that. They don't care about the depth, right? So, for example, I'll give you a simple example. Mathematics and physics seems like they're very closely connected fields. And they're always kind of presented as separate subjects. And people learn physics and learn mathematics and see no connection between the two, right? And then later you yourself discover the connection and say, oh yeah, that makes sense why I learned this mathematics, because I can apply it here. Oh, and that's why this physicist's approach was useful, because it gives me insight in such and such mathematical theorem. But that only happens, this is not how it's structured for a reason, because current educational system, you want to get a grade for each class and after each semester, right? So then it's just kind of bits of information, like a granular of knowledge, right? And then you want to be able to evaluate all of this separately. And when you are the model that you're trying to build, when it has hierarchical structure, when it has many levels, this is not the way for you to evaluate and assess students. And so that's why the current educational system is really bad. It's not like, and they're getting worse for the reasons we'll discuss shortly.
So what would you say
to build it like top down from more abstract things to?
Yeah, exactly. So it has to be built, and that's actually how we'll learn things too. It's like first more abstract things. I don't know. Parents are good, right? So
I wouldn't agree, because if you show a freshman some very, very complex abstract theory, he wouldn't understand anything, right? I think people have different perceptions.
Okay, so there has to be a balance between the two, but one important thing is to showing connections. Like, for example, in these meetings, we discuss something, and then I say, okay, we discussed something similar in such and such lecture because it has connection, because everything has connection, right? But unless we identify these connections, we are not able to kind of compress the received information. Now, for example, like, let's take neural networks as the model of everything. Very compressed view, right? Very compressed view. So now we can kind of see the mechanism of how neural networks work and see its appearance of those phenomena on different levels. That's great. That's kind of as compressed as it gets. Total unifications. Yeah.
So I have an example. So I started at university, a pretty good university, paid a lot of money to go there. I took physics for 2 years, and then materials engineering for 2 years, and then information science for 2 years. In each one of those, we learn about phase transitions. You learn about it in physics, you learn about it in material science a lot, and you learn about it in information science. It's taught completely different ways, and no one relates them at all. And of course, at university, I was trying to relate them, but looking back on it, you're like, wow, like no one teaches. If you had some understanding, like some higher order understanding of these concepts, you know, it would help a lot, and would probably help across domains, which is where like I think a lot of the learning needs to happen right now is like cross domain and not maybe so deep.
Yeah, let me give you another example. Again, I've taught physics for 12 years, and I want to teach quantum mechanics. So people come to me and say, okay, have you taken a course about linear algebra in that department? Yes, we have. I start writing equations. They have no idea that it is related to what they already learned. Now, and one of the things they cannot relate it, but there is a deeper issue with this, and we already discussed it. Actually, the same phenomena, the same objects have different names in different fields. So the very same thing, right? You know, I'll give you a dual vector. In mathematics, it's called the bra vector in physics, and the person who heard both things recorded that in their brains in two different parts. Wow. Without any connections between the two, right? Because the very same mathematical object, just because of the history of how the fields were developed, recorded in different fields, and that problem appears everywhere where maybe the same things were rediscovered in different branches.
And that's when you need the hyphen, Vitaly. Just put a hyphen in there, and you put them both together.
Right, exactly. So it's an issue of how to make things interlinked more, and I think for that we needed also it's support an idea of having this unified framework in where we can express ideas. So that will help. That will help. Now let me go to the next question about education. Education is hard, actually very hard, and for every person who taught any course knows the hardest part is to motivate a student. And so the next question is how to motivate a student to learn and teachers to teach. How do you motivate? And everyone who was a parent or who is a parent knows it's also very difficult, right? How do you motivate your kids to do anything at all? My idea for that, when I had to discover it hard way by teaching many courses and trying to understand what works and what doesn't work. What doesn't work if students don't ask questions. So if students don't ask questions, then there's no meaning for me to actually standing there and presenting in the live discussion the topic. They can just go to YouTube, they can read books, and they can listen to the thing. So the most crucial part, and I think in motivating students to learn, is to create them, start them being. Put them in the environment where they are motivated to create their world, their model of the universe, and the only way they can do it is by asking questions. So if I can put them in the environment, like I penalize them or give them extra credits when they ask questions, whatever it is. If they start asking questions, that is the beginning of learning. Anybody had any different experience with motivating students or?
I'd say, teaching a different subject like digital animation and things like that, some of the motivators are allowing the student to have expression. Now, maybe you can't do that as much in mathematics or physics, but like, for instance, I would create, let's say, kind of an unboundaried or certain, you have 5 projects you need to do, and then you need to include certain elements, and that's what your grade is based on. But as long as you include that, you can do whatever you want. So it's encouraging that
Okay,
fun.
but it would be nice if the student came up with those ingredients himself.
Well, those are core ingredients that they have to learn though as a principal of the class.
Right, but that's again, that's more of like, I think you want to help the student create his model of the universe rather than implant your own model in his head, right? And the only way this can happen is if a student, like, you can run it like an experiment, say a physics class. You come and say, I haven't run this experiment, but it could be. You are sent to some place in the multiverse on another planet. You want to discover the local laws there. What would you do? Right, so you just open your eyes. You are on a new planet. You don't know anything about physics. You don't know any chemistry. What would you do? What would be your actions? How would you be learning about and rediscovering it based on everything you know? And then maybe set up some kind of conversation where because if they don't ask questions, I mean, they don't care. And if they don't care, just go to the YouTube. Seriously, there's no reason for us to talk or read a good book, right? There are some people who don't like to ask questions, but they usually can read books by themselves, and so they're good. Victor, you wanted to say something? I know. No. Okay, he just unmuted himself, but he didn't want to say something. Okay.
Oh, wait.
All right. So, anyways, let's move. Yeah, go ahead.
Just a comment. That's a very, very, very deep thought to provoke people to build their own models of the world instead of giving them a model. Although sometimes they don't know what to ask, they don't have some questions, so you need to give them some food for thought, right? So they ask questions. So it's
so you give like an example. Here is the question I would ask, right? But anyways, maybe in the beginning there would be friction, and in the beginning they wouldn't be willing to communicate, because we all come from different backgrounds. Some people are shy. Some people already tried to ask questions and the teacher made fun of them, right? We all went through that, and so they're afraid of asking questions. So of course, given all that, but my point is that the education would not be efficient unless they ask. Now, I'll actually put it the other way around. The only use for teachers I had is when they were able to answer my questions. Everything else I can get from the book. So there were teachers who couldn't answer my questions, so they were useless for me. And there were people.
But this is let's talk about the rest of 99% of the society. Vitaly, what do you think the main function of high school should be? Just to say in this country or another country, what should be the goal?
Right. Yeah. So I think one thing we should not have standardized tests. This is just kills every single attempt of a student to develop into the thinker, right? So standardized tests promote memorization, right? Memory. You memorize certain things. They're not promoting the deeper level of learning and thinking. So
they promote consensus belief and consensus reality.
That's very bad. So I have it someplace here, but there was one good questions about knowledge, intelligence, and creativity. So those are the three ingredients in students that we want to develop. Knowledge is the easiest. Just to memorize certain things, learn certain things, follow things that I do. Now, and that can be probably, we are already good in implementing it. Now, the second one is intelligence. Now, intelligence is something that I think is about connecting ideas. So if knowledge is just, a set of ideas that you can just memorize, creativity is more about connecting ideas, like we discussed, higher depth on a different level, trying to relate things that we didn't know. Now, how do you test those connections? You cannot test it with a written test. So I can sit down with a student and talk to him. Okay, let's talk about how quantum mechanics works, or let's talk about how general relativity works. And by this communication, I can understand on which level he knows it. It may be a level that he's done all of the homework problems. He just knows how to do those problems and nothing else. That's a very basic, like no depth. He hadn't collected ideas from different branches together. Now, if I talk to him, I will be able to identify it. Now, it will not be very objective evaluation, so because I will have to be evaluating the person, right? But that would help him to actually, know that at least from my class he gets such a great grade. Now, in the former Soviet Union, we had a lot of oral exams. Now, not so much. And moreover, in American educational system, there are no oral exams. They're usually written exams where you actually, have to do homework
I see.
problems similar to exam problems similar to the ones that you did in the homework. So there's no aspect of intelligence, I think, is thing. So there's not about connecting ideas. There's not much of it, and we have to promote that. And the third ingredient, creativity, it's completely absent from all of the classes. There is no creativity that people develop. So, and the only way to develop this creativity is to give some kind of small research projects. Okay, so here you go, investigate this and that, work, come up with your own questions, try to answer that. Now it's a difficult thing, but I think this is the direction we should be going, to create not breadth, but create a depth of knowledge. So it's okay for you to not know everything in all fields, but at least create a depth of knowledge in a certain field. That's at least my view, but of course I might be wrong. Other thoughts? All right, so we'll come back to education later. Let me just go to one last question, and I'll close this session and we'll go to economics. Don't worry, everybody wants to make money, right? So we'll talk about economics. So last question on education was, how can we create an ideal environment for both students and teachers? So I think what we are doing here is great, because what we have here, we have mutual respect, right? We are respecting each other. We're not calling each other names. So it's an ideal environment. It doesn't matter who is teacher, who is a student. We are all students and we are all teachers. I learned most from my students, actually. And that's not exaggeration. You learn a lot both ways. And the second, we have to develop critical thinking skills. So that is completely absent from most of the students who graduate. They cannot think critically. They do not understand scientific methods. What they mean, what is a conjecture, what is a hypothesis, what is a model, what is a framework. Those things are just not there. It's not sitting in their heads. So it's all kind of chaos, unconnected chaos to one another. Okay, any final thoughts on education before we move on to something that has to do with...
So you think a class called How to Think Critically or How to Think would be go great in high school or college, huh?
Oh, in the beginning, right? No. By the time they come to college, they're already pretty bad students. Most of it. 99%.
I mean, you could actually creating a literal class to teach people how to think.
Way before college. Because when they come to college, they're like, I have a bunch of students who would ask me, how come I have A's in biology and other classes, and I come to your class and I get C or D? I'm saying, well, that's very simple, because there you just memorize stuff. Okay, you are good at memorizing. You are not good in connecting ideas. You are not good in understanding the principles. You're not trying to understand the principle, because that skill was not essential for you to get through the high school. So critical thinking has to be taught in elementary school in the very, very beginning. My kids, when they were in kindergarten, they were asking excellent questions. Some of them I cannot answer, but that's kind of skill of asking questions and trying to reason and understand the universe is by the end of high school, they say, okay, well, we cannot ask any more questions because teachers don't answer those questions. Right? They just kind of not motivated to ask more questions. They say, that's it, we give up. Okay, you want me to get an A, I'll get an A. I know how to do that, but that's not going to make me smarter. And I know that they're right. Okay, so critical thinking at a very early age is probably very important. Okay, let's move to economics. The first question is pros and cons of market economy and the command economy. So here we're assuming that there are only two economic systems, but for the next question, we'll generalize it and we'll say, well, let's talk about all possible economic systems. Okay, so for the command economic system, I think that it's highly constrained. And you know that every neural network that has a lot of constraints, it's like predefined architecture, may be good for certain learning tasks, but if you change learning tasks, it will just stop performing well. So on a short time scales, presumably putting constraints and have command economy is fine. In the long run, of course, this is a horrible idea. In the long run, you will eventually reach to the point where the system can no longer learn any better, and so you want to have fewer constraints. So I think the suggestion here is that market economy has fewer constraints. There are a few degrees of freedom that can be trainable, and it's more kind of unconstrained architecture. again, talking about the neural networks, command can have, not very deep, shallow network with only certain type of connections, and then market is more fluid, deeper network in terms of neural networks, have less constraints. And then that's kind of a pros and cons. So you do on the long time scales, if you are looking for many years, a market economy will win. But on the short time scales, if you're trying to just make things function properly, command economy is not so bad. Any thoughts, any ideas of that?
I apologize, folks. I got to go to a meeting I could not cancel.
Okay, all right. Well, go ahead, Josh. You say goodbye to Rebel. Yeah,
I was waving to Rebel.
We're running out of time. Maybe we should postpone economics discussion until late. Let's take a popular vote. Who wants to postpone the discussion of economics until later times? Nobody. We're ready
The
to
thing I
tackle.
would say is
We'll tackle it now. That's okay. Okay, so let's sure, thanks. So let's now go to the next question. Let's think about, is it true that the existing economic system are unsustainable? Well, so again, the existing economic systems are more of a centralized system. And that is, again, probably a good idea for shorter time scales, but not so much on the larger time scale. So centralization is a bad thing. It puts more constraint. The other feature of the economic system is based on revenue, on money, right? So what's your measure of success? I made more money. Okay, so then that puts you in a better position. Now, I think that's bad. So would be better. Now, of course, we tried other things. Communism been tried, didn't work so well either.
Sorry to interrupt, but I think I missed why you think that the current economic systems are centralized.
Well, there is a centralized decision making, like central bank, right? Each government has a centralized, to make a decision, financial decisions of what's allowed, what's not allowed, which kind of laws to impose, what's kind of laws not to impose. So it's really, up down, right? So somebody up there, if it's one person who decides, it's a horrible situation. But even if it's large collection of people decide, it's still more centralized. As we already discussed, it would be nice not to do that, and would have to people who actually know stuff make decisions, right? So if you know how to improve, medical system or insurance system, you ask those people who know this and make them make the decision. So we already discussed that those people who know stuff have to make the decision. But right now it's all centralized. It's like there is a head and everybody else is underneath of it. Now it can be very shallow network, or can be deep network. Now, of course, deep is better. Shallow is worse, but there is still this main node from where everything goes down. So I think the idea is not to have that. At least neural network theory tells you that this is not a good idea. Now, however, there is still something that you need to optimize. For any learning system, you need to know what is your loss function, what is it that you're trying to optimize. So right now, it seems to be money playing the key role, and revenues, or how much money each of the company makes. Now, this is probably a good idea, was a good idea for a long time, at least, because it's better than what was before. Before, money was like, who is stronger, whoever, makes all the decisions. But I think it's still not all the way there. So it would be nice if it's not who has more money, but who is smarter. Now, I know it's not the objective thing, right? So, and then we are facing the issues here but maybe if we be optimizing for ideas rather than for profits, like with Facebook, right? We discussed today. So we have this system or Twitter, and their algorithm, what is encoded is that let's make people spend more time on the Facebook, because that's where we make more money. Now, if we can reset the algorithms, let's create collaborations, connections. So people who, maybe have similar ideas may, sit down, write a paper, publish on the archive, and then this kind of system would be promoted by the ideas, and the ideas would be ruling this economic system. Now, of course, after ideas, there will be profits and everything, right? Because after, you'll create some breakthroughs, and the breakthroughs will generate new jobs, new businesses. But what should be the loss function, I guess? So I think here it's important that we move from the system where the loss function is money towards where it is ideas and original ideas. And that's kind of a hard thing to do, because you have this centralized system of the Facebook where a few people make the decisions what the algorithm will be. But it would be easier if the system is decentralized, where there is just there isn't a single person who makes a decision of how this whole social system has to be functioning. But there will be like communities of, I don't know, physicists who want to collaborate with biologists who want to collaborate with psychologists. This is like more fluid and decentralized system. Any thoughts on that? Okay.
I agree on decentralization. It's going to be hard in some countries more so than others. So if you think about America's political system, our whole idea is we write some policy, and then that policy stays on the books for 10 years because no one wants to admit that it was wrong. So you have a bad policy that everyone defends for 10 years. Whereas what we're describing is an iterative process where I know this policy is not going to be great the first year, but the second year will make it a little better, and the third year, and the fourth year, and fifth year. And people just are bad at that. Like they're bad at, they want it to work right away and then no changes. So I'm thinking like educational policy. It's hard to evolve from one state to another when there's no scientific method. And right now there's we don't apply the scientific method to anything but science, really.
It should be. So the educational system, economical system, and political system should be modeled as a neural network, I think. And then we should set up certain experiments and see how adjusting of the loss function parameters affects the development. And so you can, in principle, do that. You don't have to start with a large system right away. You can start with a small system and see, well, that works. Now, and that has to do also with educational systems. So you don't have to run an experiment on the very large scales. You can run it locally, but you have to, before you do that, you have to identify what is your objective function, because very often it's wrong. So setting, I want my students to get higher grades in such exams, right? And now then you will teach all of the students the same way and just adjust to one thing, that they get the best SAT score. That's horrible, right? Because people are different. They have different strengths and weaknesses in different things. And teaching everybody the same way is just also not fluid enough. You need to make it more fluid so that their different ideas can, there is this notion like all kids left behind, right? And it's a good intention, right? We want to make sure that everybody gets minimal education and brings up the level of people higher, but you should not also discourage people, talented kids who really want to dig deeper into certain subjects to explore that. Like in Russia, we had specialized classes for people who are interested in mathematics, who are interested in physics. There's less and less of that here. And kind of, it doesn't allow people with talented kids earlier on to learn. But I think it happens on all levels in an economic system. So it's not just education, but you want to be able to, you should not put constraints. The fewer constraints, the better the system will evolve. So this is kind of the message that we get from a learning system.
I think something else you could say is what America doesn't do, what a lot of other countries still do kind of well is at least better, is the mentor apprenticeship thing. And so in America, there's still some trades that have mentors and apprenticeships. And you get this one-on-one interaction with someone. But that's kind of moved away. And I think we've moved away from that because it's just more expensive. So again, it's going back to money. Instead of prioritizing
money, well, okay, maybe it's also about the planning horizon. So if you want to do something right away, it will work in 1 year or 2 years. Maybe you should not create the mentorship programs or like one-on-one education. But if you want to learn on a larger time scales, then of course it is beneficial for students to actually be able to be taught in a personalized way, so that the educational system and the curriculum is designed for a particular student, much more fluid than it is now. So it should be the minimal. So I would say that the number of courses that are required should be very minimal, and there's more electives, and a lot more electives, depending on what you're good at, right?
And you should go back to college when you're 40.
Right.
What do you think about that? Do you think that people should?
No, I think it's completely okay. It's completely okay because anyways, none of the kids, most of the kids were not ready to go to college when they went to college. As I said, they were just good in memorizing things, and that's why they were fine in college, but not good in learning things. Very often you hear, I studied this, and that in college, I never used it in my life. That's horrible. Okay, yeah. So you study something, that's just shows the system doesn't work. You study the things that you don't use. What's the point of this? Okay, that's a waste of time. Really, you want to do the other way around. You want to actually go to college your entire life, I would say.
Yeah.
To be always in college, but also, decide for yourself what are the good and bad things. What are the things that you want to learn, right? And instead of telling the big brother, you do this or do that, that's not a good idea. Much more fluid, a lot more courses. So I'm envisioning some kind of virtual institute where the number of courses offered is like 100 times more than in typical college, like with all of the specialties and all the depth and directions. And then you have access to this throughout your entire life. And then you can just, constantly sign up for something. Now I want to learn general relativity. Next day I want to learn, music, history, or whatever it is, right? And then you do that. So that would be ideal, and I think we are moving in that direction. So and that's the education of the past isn't just working much, I would say. Okay, so we move to education from economy. Let's just go to the next question. So, what are the most optimal economic system? How can we transform? So I think this is like decentralization. Economic system has to be decentralized, less constraints. And there will be emergence of criticality. So it's by itself, it will start forming some, clusters of people interested, physics and mathematics, art, collaboration between art and physicists, biologists with historians. I don't know, but it's a fluid system where all possible connections are promoted, and it's not bubble-like. So it's not like because there is also a bubble of high energy community in physics, right? So there is a bubble. Even within physics, there are bubbles, and information bubbles. So condensed matter physicists, they don't talk much to high energy physicists, and they have different skills. Also, that's horrible. So and that kind of has to be, those bubbly thing has to be broken. Okay, the last two questions, and we're good to go. How can we measure and understand the impact of technology and innovation on the economy? Okay, so this is a very difficult question, but it needs to be addressed anytime. So you want to, let's say AI, you bring this into the economic system. You are afraid because you don't know what will happen. But from the point of view of the neural network, you know what will happen. The temperature will go up. The temperature will go up, and all of the businesses will have to readjust their learnable parameter. Now, yes, on a short time scale, it may create, a worse state of the system. It will be less optimal, much less optimal, but that's a good thing because, after that, it will transform to even lower minimum. So basically, raising of the temperature, you can measure. You can measure by like, for example, and then you want to measure those changes in the temperature, the economical temperature early on, so you can actually do something about this. Now, it may produce some economic crises, maybe, yeah, but that is okay. So I don't think we should be afraid of those new technologies. We should never be afraid of them because it's a natural tendency. Yet we should be watching out them closely. And so that brings me to the last question about whether there should be AI laws, right? So should we impose laws on the AI right now? like antitrust laws. So I would say yes, but what's more important, actually understanding how AI works. Because if you do not understand how it works, you don't know what the right laws to impose. And that's what they're trying to do now. So let's stop all of the AI, test developments. Why? Well, I mean, it seems like a kid who saw something which was scared, closed his eyes and went, under pulled the blanket on top of it. It's not going to work, because there will be always somebody who will continue testing. And but understanding how they work, and once you understand how they work, you can actually say what are the dangers, is it dangerous or it's not. My guess is that social networking is a lot more dangerous. So and we didn't impose any laws or anything at that time, and now it's okay. Well, kids live on the TikTok right now, right? Like they literally always, if I don't tell them put away your phone, they'll be on either YouTube or watching TikTok videos. This is horrible, right? Nobody worries about that. And all of a sudden, AI started talking reasonably. We're all afraid of it. It makes no sense. So I think we should be imposing that, but understanding how things work is more important. By the way, modeling how the social networking works also is a task for us to solve. Writing down evolution equation for the weight matrix and seeing how it evolves, identifying where things go wrong when the temperature rises and how we can cool it down, and what kind of what should be the algorithm to make it function better. Other thoughts, Katya? You wanted to say something?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about ideas generation as kind of loss function for economics, right? What you talk. I don't quite understand. So money is some kind of equivalent of wealth or well-being. I think it is. I agree that it is quite a bad
measure. Yeah.
Measure, yes, but still, find what is the purpose of economics, the system. The purpose is to produce some kind of communication leading to some well-being. Let's put it in a more general way. But I don't understand. I don't know how can. Another question is how to measure well-being, but. So I'm just trying to explain what is not quite clear to me. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not sure how to formulate the question best. But what about this ideas topic?
Maslow paradigm, right? What are the basic needs of people and how they grow? So first, it's kind of safety, right? So we'll make sure that you are safe. You get food. Then you want to, creativity, feelings, love, and all this hierarchy of things that might matter. What I'm saying that money is all about, objects, like you said, you want to live in a comfortable house, you want to have the basic needs, you want to have food, and it's really low. It's a low objective, important, but very low objective. Safety as well, right? So it's not just that, because when you get money, you pay your taxes to get safety, right? So that there is a policeman who will preferably not beat you up, but actually protect you, right? So that's why. So to get all those basic needs, you need money. So it's one part of this loss function. But at some point, when you have all that, right, you are starting individuals, not as the society, start thinking about, well, what else? What else do I want to accomplish in this life? I want to make a difference. I want to maybe generate some ideas, and write down the theory of everything, whatever your objective is. And then you want to move away from those basic needs to more the needs that are give you a higher level of satisfaction, I guess, right? Now, and that's where we are. So we are still, most of the people in the world right now, are concerned about actually paying their bills or, eating the food and clothes. So for most of the people, it is still the priority. So I'm not saying that we just suddenly remove money and replace it with ideas that will just not benefit them. but it has to be a gradual shift when that you actually start paying attention to some more important issues, and that also will be on a higher level, right? So ideas are not, I may be the one who generated idea or you, but then we all have to agree for this idea, and we have to take it further for this economic system will grow. So I think there's just a separate dimension to this. Like money is one dimension. Maybe preferably in the long run, money will just completely go away because everybody will have their basic needs, right? So and then there'll be something else that you would want to.
But I think that even on that level, money is not the thing that is not working so good, because some people just trying to survive. Some people strive to get more and more of wealth. That is, and globally we are just destroying the environment horribly. So, and this is all the consequences of the economics system we have.
Right. But now imagine that we had money which are not attached to you, but attached to bigger scales. Like, physicists came up with a new theory. We are physicists proud of it. It's a money not for a person, but a money for community, right? And then that's what I put it. Ideas are something that is belongs to everyone. Everybody can benefit from an idea, and then only certain people can benefit from money. As you said, there is like inequality, complete inequality. There's like extremely rich people who will never use that much money that they have, but they keep it just because it's their measure of success. And then, but you go to those people and say, okay, so how about we take away from you, 95% of your billions of dollars, and instead you will call one of the physical phenomena by your name. Seems like a good trade, right? So this is, I don't know, maybe he'll say, go away, I don't care about physics, but anyways, so I think if we will be putting more stress on the ideas in the developing this loss function, and less on money, maybe there will the economy will grow faster, right? Because right now, kind of the economy uses the things we discovered as physicists, 50 years ago or more, right? So we're not really, and we're not generating a lot of new ideas because there is not much investment in here also. So ideas are not valued at all in the economic world. What is valued is how much money you made. And that's kind of the problem with it. And so Alex, you wanted to say something, so go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Just some thoughts about the economists, Katya. Thank you for your question. Because if you take a look on economics from point of view of evolution, so I think it's wrong to say that in economics the objective function is revenue or making the money, because actually, from my point of view, intelligence probably is more important, because intelligence and money, they are creating a positive reward loop, because if you are smarter, you wins everybody who have money, so you can take money from less smarter persons in economic. And so in a long term, more rich agents in economy because became more smarter agents. And so on a long term, we see that the richest companies all over the world are the companies which investigate to the intelligence, to the ideas, to the persons, their money. So yeah. I think it's more important. And money is, we're talking about the money only because we have a positive reward loop there from point of view of evolution. It's on this, but first class citizen is ideas, because smarter person always may possible take money from no so smart agent.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I have to tell you that if you take all the billionaires and give them a physics exam, I will tell you that most likely they will all fail it, right? All of them, right? Yet they will fail even on the exam on the topics of the physical phenomena that they're using to make money. right? So
But I can argue that when I'm talking about the agents in economy, I mean not the persons but the organizations. Actually, the unit of evolution in economy is organization, and so
good.
richest persons, they control and influence the organizations, and their money allows them to union smart persons, which allows them to win in the competition in this evolution.
Yeah, but
So-
then lifetime of the organizations wouldn't be so short. What is
Yes.
happening usually, some smart person funds a company, starts a company, attracts smart people, then the person retires, and then the company crashes, collapses, and the lifetime is 50, 60 years. Lifetime of a smart person is the same as a lifetime of the organization. That is the problem, is because yes, maybe somebody smart was able to attract smart people and started, but this system is not sustainable because after a while it's all about money, right? You are attracting, you're paying people more money, so you attract people first. You try to choose who is smarter, and you hire a smarter person, but eventually the less and less smart people will join your company, and it will completely collapse. And so having within a company just one smart guy is not enough, right? And for the whole economic systems, also, if you look at the people who do have money and make most of money, it's actually not the people who start the company who invest, right? Those are the people who make most of money, and that's may not be the smartest people either. So anyways, I mean, this is
you're right. And it's actually what I'm talking about. If you have a money, you can invest to the companies, and so you're creating a positive revert loop.
right.
So you have a money, so you attract the smart persons, and so your money working on you, and yourself, you don't need to be very smart, but you control the activity of the persons which smart enough to win in a competition during the solution.
I guess I just want to put a price tag on ideas, and I think that ideas have a very low price tag right now in the economy, and I wanna put it a lot more. Like name of the company may have a higher price than, and I wanna reverse it. Ideas are important, most important things in any economy, because the new ideas is what they create new companies, the new businesses, but again, this is a work in progress. I'm not telling you to have a complete proposal of how the ideal economic system should work, but if it is just centered around money, and then we get what we have now, and now very smart people may be very poor, and very rich people may be very stupid, as we have many examples of that. Okay, that's
Can we somehow address, do you think it is about the field of economics addressing the issue of
destroying
the environment? Our economics works exactly this way.
Because the loss function, right? The loss function is not about the environment. The loss function is about making money.
But what you suggest, ideas, I'm not sure it solves, it addresses this problem. So can we do something about this?
Okay, so let's say you are given $1 billion and want to create an institute which generates new ideas. You would go find a very nice place, very nice environment, far away from big cities, right? Build all the infrastructure, schools, and etc. So you will create an ideal environment for scientists to work with, and that's what you would do. And you would be promoting their, the environmental, you'll be addressing environmental issues because scientists, first of all, they're smarter and they do know what hurts the environment and what doesn't hurt the environment. And so then they can make the decisions of not only making money, but making products out of their ideas that actually are not harmless to the environment. So I think, I will agree with you. So let me just give you that. So maybe in this equation, we have to put the third component. Ideas are very important because no economy can run without it. Ideas are undervalued. They should be valued a lot more. Environmental issues have to be there as well, because if you are not addressing them as you create new companies, new businesses, eventually this whole biosystem will collapse, and then we know where it will end.
It is not.
And money. So those are the three things. Yeah, go ahead.
It's just to note that going somewhere to a nice environment and building something there, it's not
Solving the problem.
caring. The most one of the most important problems is about forests. So, and it is mostly about preserving some what is left. And so how can it be included in the economy?
Yeah, so if we have smart people in power who are not conspiracy theorists, but who can actually reason and understand formulas, data, and statistics, okay, if we have those people in power who can like see, oh, here's the trend of the global temperature, here's the trend of how the area of forests diminishes. If you can have people, smarter people in power, and you will have that if in your formula ideas will dominate, right? Then you will be solving all those problems simultaneously. So you'll have smarter people who create the ideas, more and more ideas, and they are also paying attention to the environmental issues, which I think are very important. It is just the problem why we don't address it is the time scale. The time scale for environmental changes are hundreds and hundreds of years. The time scale for a person to make most money and show his classmates that I'm most successful, much better than you are, much smaller. So that's the problem. So, but if we can create this, higher decentralized system, which doesn't live for 50 or 60 years like typical company, but which actually stays there for longer, then that will solve the problem, right? So
how we can influence that, how we can introduce into practice some.
No. That's what I mean. You start out with one company at a time. You show that this company, just make it decentralized, make it grow. Show that they're putting knowledge on top and putting the money on the bottom, putting their employers first and clients seconds. You create this ideal environment, this will grow as any organism. You make it decentralized so it doesn't grow like a cult, because many companies are just cults, right? You go there just because you want to be part of the cult, not because you want to be you want to contribute. Where your ideas that you generate within the company are named after you because it's your idea, right? Doesn't matter who makes money, because at some point it's not about money, it's about just people acknowledging what you did. We have examples of companies where a CEO is a very famous person who had done nothing for the products that were developed in those companies. And the people who actually developed the products and deserve all of the credit, nobody knows them, right? So that's horrible. And so if we have a great, as I said, small company first, where ideas valued, employees valued, and then that starts growing it's not important not to be a cult, okay? That's I keep saying that because many companies turn out to be that. Then this will grow, and then it will show that here it is. Here's the company with the longer lifetime than 60 years, and then it will gradually join, and it will split apart when it makes sense, like cell replication. Because it doesn't make sense sometimes to hold the company together just to be one big monster. It's better to split into pieces. Sometimes it will merge, and then it will as a decentralized structure, it will develop. So and I think it will be a lot more functional. Employees will be much happier, because decentralized also puts a lot of responsibility on you. You are not just given what to do, like do this, that. Well, ChatGPT can do that, right? You have to know a lot. You have to use your creativity. You have to work on different projects, one project, then another project, and all this ideally can grow as a proof of concept. Like you're asking about that, because we cannot run economic experiments on a country. We tried that, like with Soviet Union. There was an attempt to run economic. It's not a good idea. So you want to start small. like at the level of the company, and then show that it works, and then the company can replicate itself or merge and potentially. But again, if the objective is not about making money, but about making, like, money of course have to be part of it, because money is like a food for a company. It has to be there, but it's not all just about the food. Maybe that's kind of my main message, right? Even for organisms, yes, food is essential in the beginning, right? Safety and food. But then in this Maslow hierarchy, there are other levels. And so, and then there's level of generating new ideas. And you ask people who are wealthy if you offer them a chance of giving up, $10 billion for a chance to write an important groundbreaking paper. I think smarter people easily trade it. Because they know they cannot write smart papers, but they have lots of billions of dollars. So it's a work in progress, but we'll get there. Yes, Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, so don't forget, some thoughts appeared during the discussion. If you take a look on economics, like on a physics system, and for example, Earth agency is a particle, so then the money, it will be the kind of kinetic energy, and ideas is a kind of potential energy. And so from this point of view, is interesting how this potential energy appears.
Yeah, it's a good example, because actually in the learning theory, loss function is energy, equivalent to energy. So that's why when you are taking so when you're trying to minimize the loss function, you're trying to find kind of good ideas which make your system function better, right? So that's kind of related. Yes, good point, Katya. You wanted to say something? You're still unhappy. Remember, we're not proposing a final solution. We're just saying, like, we're running a Gedanken experiment. What would be best? Like, and I say, like, at some point, money is just not giving you more satisfaction. People working there, right? So it's more important to respect. I mean, again, just take an example. Pick your favorite company, large one, right? And where CEO is a world-known famous figure who represents everything that happens in the company. And then take employees of that company who do all the work, creative work, most important work, right? Without those people, there would be no product in the company. What do they want? They will probably want to be acknowledged that they have done something important. That's it. Okay, they already have enough money, but they want to get acknowledged and that's why if they generated an idea, if a person generated an idea, that idea it belongs to a person. It has to be there. Money is separate. But, yeah.
Maybe we can put away money, but anyway, the problem is our level of consumption that is constantly growing.
Mm-hmm.
And even if somehow we put away money and move with something different, what we are constantly increasing our levels of comfort.
Every
generation it gets higher and higher. Huh?
Yeah. We're consuming more, but I don't think we're increasing our level of happiness or anything.
Right,
like
right, exactly. Yes.
So the reason we increase consumption, because this is a measure to show your classmates that you're doing pretty well. Okay, it's just a measure of success. It has nothing to do with your actually what you need.
Well-being, yes.
Well-being. But if it was an environment where you can like show off and tattoo on your forehead, here's the paper I wrote, or and it would look cool, then people would do that, because that would be value into the ideas. Right now, there's no value idea. Like in Russia, there's like professors were not valued at all in the 90s. I don't know how about it is now, but right now in US, professors are not valued at all. They're treated as hired to teach, right? So there is no value in ideas. And every billionaire says, well, idea is not important. Important how you take those ideas and make money out of this. And I'm saying this is a complete BS, because without ideas, there would be nothing else. Well, there are different levels of importance, like, and I think I'll say there are 5 levels of how ideas get to the money. So the first, you have to generate an idea. Okay. Then you or somebody else has to promote the idea so people understand what the hell the idea is. That's usually takes time. So first, maybe a paper, and then there's like follow-up papers. Then somebody has to take and create a product that you can sell from that idea. Then somebody has to build that product, and then the 5th person will make money out of this. So there's 5 levels of different people involved: creation of idea, promoting idea, building a product, and those like engineers. Now actually, producing the product, setting up the manufacturing chain. And then there's at the end the person who makes money out of this. So in all these 5 layers, we only know people on top. Yeah, the people who actually just make money out of that because they just invested in something that they're not deserving as much credit as they get. Like all the 4 levels underneath are a lot more important. And the lower you go in this level, the more important it is. So that's kind of my take on it. Okay.
And what you were telling about the company, you mentioned that you should put employees first.
Yeah, so those who create ideas, the ideas are most important. So it's like, again, there's 5 layers.
Employees versus clients. What does it mean? You should not put clients.
So clients will come with a so like, let's say you come and you start a company and say, well, guys, sit and think how we can make a product that will sell most. Okay, there is no goal. This is no goal, and people will be creating some very awkward products. Nothing original will come out of this. If you said, okay, here's a team, physics, mathematics, biology, just explore your ideas, do the research. Now, again, planning horizon should be much larger. It's like investing into a research versus investing into the final stage of the, in this hierarchy of 5 steps. So I'm saying that the longer planning horizon, if you invest into this initial step, research, now a little shorter horizon, if you already some ideas there and you just want to, understand it, promote it, do some calculations on top of it. Even smaller planning horizon, if you just charge to, build a computer, let's say, build something that can potentially be sold. And then if you already build a prototype, of course, manufacturing is even shorter. So every time you move to another level, it's easier for you to make it, but also it should be valued less, because there's only a few ideas that one can generate that are important. And then the rest is just more like straightforward. Still not completely straightforward. I mean, there's still tricks on every step, but now it's flipped out the way around, right? Nobody cares about ideas. People think there's too many ideas around, which is not true. There are very few ideas. Nobody thinks about, creating products. They think that the money is most important, right? And now what do we see? We see the venture capitalists who are talking to different teams with different ideas and choose, right? And looks like the people with money are running the show. It should be the other way around. It should be the person with ideas gives the talks, and then there is a bunch of investors sitting there, and then they tell about themselves, and I say, okay, well, you look like a good guy. I'll take your money.
Seems like it's not possible.
Right now it's not
Unfortunately,
possible at all.
you can get the food from ideas, but from money you can.
Right. No, I'm just telling like how it should be, right? So it's not how it is, because ideas are not valued. The money run the show, and that's bad. That's what the kind of the problem with the current economic system. And well,
probably it's construction of this world, and probably it's not possible to change this situation.
Oh, you don't change it on a large scale. This is not how phase transition takes place. You do not change. You just create a small organization where it's different, and then it grows. This is what I'm doing, right? So I'm not gonna go to I don't know, big company. I don't want to call names, but we all know them. I'm not going to go to them and say, all right, change the way you run your business. They say, why should we? We are still billionaires and richest people in the world. We run the show and say, okay, continue running your show, but we'll do it differently. We'll do it differently where ideas matter more.
Actually, here is an interesting asymmetry, because actually money without ideas can't make new monies. But if you have ideas, you have the possibility to create new money. And so
yeah. So you'll have.
It's very important.
That's what I'm saying. If this phase transition takes place, then all companies will be centered around ideas, not around money. Okay, and then ideas will be running the show, not the other way around.
Yeah.
So
and actually, what happens if we have no any ideas? Money takes all the ideas and burns them again and again. And time from time, we see the same picture, same products.
Guys, I think we've beat our record now, more than 2 hours. Was lots of fun, exhausting, but lots of fun. Now, I hope you guys, I enjoyed it, certainly, to went orthogonal directions, but I hope to, and Victor just came. Victor, we were just saying goodbye to everyone, but nice to see that you are here. So, all right, guys, I'll see you next week, and we'll stay in touch. Bye-bye.